Hello. Admittedly, this doesn't look like a very fancy setup. I have a baking tray and a very inexpensive glass gaiwan and an electric kettle and 6 teas I need to try very quickly. That's kind of why I'm doing this. These teas are from Azuma Tea Garden. They're all oolong, and the difference between them is just the cultivar. Okay, first up is Okumidori, 3 grams. It smells like a bag of weeds. Not drug weed, like if you were cleaning dandelions. It smells like garden weeds. Big bag of them. So 3 grams, we'll use 100 milliliters of water for each one. Kind of just an arbitrary decision. It just seems to be what I'm feeling. And because I don't have my glass carafes with me, and I don't really like smelling tea from teacups, I have a wine glass. And this is not a very fancy setup. I believe, with the exception of the gaiwan, pretty much everyone just has these things at home. Your scale doesn't need to have a timer. Timers on scales somehow make the price very expensive. If you have a clock or a watch, or you just want to count, that should be good enough too. We'll do 45 seconds for a steep, because I believe this is made pretty strong. It's got a chocolatey sort of smell to it. It's funny that in green tea, Okumidori is so like creamy and like ice creamy. Yeah, now it's kind of like, I don't know, the garden weed smell mixed with chocolate. Cacao. Garden weeds and cacao. Yeah, it's got a very dry, very powdery cacao sort of smell. It's not really like chocolate. It's very aggressively weedy in the flavor as well. With the cacao notes behind it though, like they're there, they're always together. That's pretty good. It's consistent. Pretty brisk, and it's got a good astringency to it. Good or bad, depending on if you want it there. I don't want it there, so it's bad for me. And like comparing to Chinese oolongs that have that sensation that you might call gan, this has like the beginning of gan. It has the bitter part, but then the sweetness never comes. So it's not really gan. It's but it's not far off. Like the beginning flavor is there. I think, what have I had that's similar to this? Like water Sprite, shui shan. I don't know if that's how you say it, but something like that is like it's anyway. Fujian dark oolongs are like this, and so that's exactly what I was hoping that these teas would be comparable to that. Because when we find a good one, the restaurant that I work for is going to use them to make cold oolong teas, like Japanese style. And in Japan, they use Chinese oolong typically. But this Japanese restaurant wants to make a Japanese cold oolong. Next is gonna be Uji Midori. It's a cultivar that I've never had before. But now that smells like a dusty, old farmhouse room that you may visit on a trip to Japan. Like one of the temples or something like that. That have areas that you can walk through that have tatami, and they're in the mountains, and they're always open. So dust is a major aroma. Kind of winey, actually, in an interesting way. Still got that kind of weedy sort of smell to it. There's like this complex juiciness. And it's like sandy brown color smell. There's like there's a woodiness to it. That's the sandy brown. And then there's a spiciness to it. But that's kind of like a stale spice. Something you'd find in like French toast. So like your cinnamon blend, maybe nutmeg. Less to criticize, I think, than the okumidori, but I have less positive things to say as well. I would brew it stronger next time. That's pretty strong though. That's almost like 1:30 ratio. It's easy drinking. There's not really anything to compliment. There's like a muskiness to it too. And I don't know if that's a super appealing thing, the muskiness. It doesn't really have a finish. But it has good balance overall and maybe kind of a strong mid. Actually might end up blending these teas. So I should start saying those things so I can remember them too. Yeah, not really any beginning. There's something of a middle. More or less, I would say like this is a filler of a blend, if I was gonna do a blend. Next up is Samidori. Same as the last one, in a like kind of like mountainy villa, tatami room, old area. Not super exciting. This smells very similar to Da Hong Pao from China. It's got a chlorine-y kind of sharp, like abrasive smell. But then very oolong-y in the smell too. And very like, it's got that, I don't know, hold on a second. I would say that out loud. Like, it's a red, like a red date smell. Like if you were swimming in a public pool and then you got a bunch of chlorine up your nose and that feeling, and then you ate a date right after that, I would say it'd be similar. It's got a bit of the chocolate aroma that the okumidori had. Yeah, so far it smells the best and most of what I want. Easy drinking, smooth, lingering heat. Maybe ends a little dry, but doesn't have any of that gan that the okumidori was so generous in. But everything else is really good. If this were Da Hong Pao, it would be a very cheap one, but it is the closest so far. Solid across the board. I Don't know if there's anything that's unique about it, like beginning, middle, or end. Everything is just light, but everything is pleasant. Yamato Midori. Weedier and grassier than the other ones. So it'll also be my first time to ever try a Yamato Midori. This is gonna be a... If you buy a Guy one, I recommend you invest in a nicer one than this. This is kind of sucks for many reasons. But get into that another time, I guess. Okay. This is very chocolatey, almost to the level of like Jinjun Mei black tea. Pretty different than the other ones. Actually tastes more like black tea than oolong tea. And it is very good. It's chocolatey. I think anyone who drinks Jinjun Mei or Golden Needle kind of black teas from China, teas that are based on the buds, would really enjoy this. And to my knowledge, this was really, really cheap compared to what you would have to spend to get this flavor in something different. There's not really any high notes, but there's lots of low notes. So this would make a very intriguing base. So I would say this would have good synergy with the Okumidori, yeah. And then there was those other two. Good synergy with those two. Interesting, interesting. But this is like quite excellent to drink on its own. No blending would be needed there. I wouldn't necessarily think it would make a great cold tea, only because I believe those really gentle notes would be like drowned out by ice and coolness, and that you'd want to have that kind of briskness to like make the cold tea interesting. Azuma, you have a hidden gem and you don't know it. Or maybe you do know it. Yeah, this one kind of smells like a gift shop. What does a gift shop smell like? Just kind of nice and fresh. There's not really anything in there. It just smells like a place where you'd buy nice things in a nice area. So this is the Kanaya Midori. This is so hot. Jesus Christ. This guy one sucks. The lid is so thin. And the top here, there's nothing to protect the heat. Bad design. Or bad form. I don't know. It's one of the two. I think it's bad design. Okay. Kind of like the same as the last one. It's like chocolate focus. I thought. Hold on. Not really a focus. It might be there. Don't know how I would describe it, but I don't think it's as good or as appealing as a smell as the other four. I would say maybe spice centric with a kind of fermenty, weedy, so I would have described this in the past as like basil that has been frozen and thawed. That doesn't smell like basil anymore. It's its own mess of a thing. Don't recommend that anyone does that. Yeah, frozen and thawed herbs. It's like kind of like rot. A little bit of spice notes on a lot of rot, with a really top heavy, hot, like really you can taste the heat. And then there's really nothing in the middle or at the end. It's one of the rare times I would just, if I was outside, I would just toss this into the grass. But because that's so inconvenient to do, I guess I will drink it. It doesn't stand up to any of the other ones, in my opinion, so far. It's got briskness, it's got initial flavor. It's pretty much all it's got, and I think you'd have to be careful using it because while the aroma isn't that strong, it's not an appealing one. So in a blend, maybe it makes sense to use a little bit if you really need to have a little bit more initial punch. But I don't think it should be very much. And then if it was so little in the blend, would it deliver that initial punch that you want? I don't know, because it would have to be like 30%. Well, I don't like the aftertaste. I don't like how it smells. I like how it looks, actually. Pretty nice looking leaves. Asahi is the last one. It's again kind of like the gift shop style. Maybe it's got a bit of the tatami room sort of thing, but not a whole lot. Asahi is so celebrated for everything that it does in matcha. I'm so curious what happens now. What happens in oolong tea? Okay. Fruity and floral. Kind of reminds me of those, what are they called now? They are called honeysuckles. It's kind of like super dainty smelling on one hand, and very like wild. That floral smell is big. What kind of smell is that? Other than honeysuckle, which is something that might be even unique to where I live. Like it's so pink. Or like fuchsia. Almost seems like it can't be real, that smell. Like it would have to be added. Let's go for a walk. Those things. These white flowers here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. It's close to that. It's like if that was pink. So I think lilac. It's got maybe a lilac smell. but then there's like a taffy, Tootsie Roll sort of thing. A parsley sort of thing. It's got that freshness of parsley, the floral note of the lilac, and then maybe the sweetness note of Tootsie Rolls. At the end, like right now, that I'm kind of like nose blind to it, now I just smell parsley basically. Parsley on a cutting board is pretty green, pretty raw. Mouthfeel is great. It's rich. Interesting. It's like almost too much. Not really anything in the beginning. Strong middle. Not really any finish. Overall, really good though. And unique smelling. All were good except the Kanaya Midori, I think it was. Which wasn't awful. It for an inexpensive tea, I think it's probably worth the price. But like, as a producer overall, don't think that tea can hold a candle to anything else that they do. And then yeah, Asahi and was it Yamato Midori? Those were super interesting compared to the others. Like extra interesting. Ciao.